Hello, hi, and welcome to this episode of the Mandy Mayer podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where we chat all about your health, your fitness, your goals when it comes to your health and fat loss expedition. I am going to start this episode off with adding a massive disclaimer to the beginning of this episode, and that disclaimer is only the brave should continue to listen to this episode. And the reason for that is that this episode is going to contain a lot of traces of tough love. And the second slight disclaimer here is anytime I hand out or dish out tough love, I want you to know that it comes from a place of love. And I never just throw it around lightly. Okay, so in today's episode, I'm going to be chatting about the one thing that is standing in the way of your success. And that one thing is you. Now, I want you to hear me out because I am going to explain a little bit more about this and give you more context to what I mean when I say you are the only one standing in the way of your success. But I wanted to bring this up because oftentimes, myself included, we will find every reason as to why we can't be successful, or you will find every reason as to why you can't do certain things. But oftentimes, us as humans don't take the responsibility as to why things aren't getting done. And I think the moment you start taking that responsibility, that is where the change starts happening. That is where the magic starts happening, because now you've owned your actions or the lack thereof. And you're like, let's start working on this. Now, before anyone gets their panties in a knot, I said that with the biggest smile on my face, I want you to know that I'm not saying you are the only reason that you are not successful. There are struggles. I get that. Life is full of struggles, but you cannot let those struggles stand in the way of you moving forward. And you also can't use those struggles to create labels for yourself as to why you can't do certain things. So the only way you're going to continue working on your success, or start working on your success, or achieve those daily non-negotiables, or whatever it is that you are working on, is for you to get out of your own way. Now, you could be standing in your own way for many different reasons. You could be the one stopping yourself from moving forward for many different reasons. Maybe, for example, there is a huge amount of self-doubt within yourself. Maybe you've created a lot of limiting beliefs for yourself. And because of all this, you feel that you are not capable of achieving success in whatever you are working on. So you, my friend, need to stop doubting your abilities and you need to start believing in yourself. You really need to start believing that you are capable of doing difficult things, that you are capable of succeeding in no matter what you are trying to work on. I mean, and I say this with a big smile on my face again, I can't be the only one here believing in you. You need to believe in yourself as well, because I can tell you now, I once believed that I wasn't capable either, and I managed to do it. So again, please start believing in yourself a little bit more. Whatever you do, don't shut yourself down before you even start working on something. And now I also know that maybe, just maybe, there is that slight fear of failure. Okay, so maybe you have that self-doubt because maybe you are scared of failing. Maybe you're scared of succeeding. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, what is your life going to look like if you do succeed in whatever you're working on? Again, you're only going to know if you try. There's absolutely no reason to fear failure. You need to rewire your mind and your mindset as to how you perceive failure. You really need to start looking at failure as a way of learning, a learning opportunity, instead of looking at failure as a setback, because failure is not a setback. Your little micro failures, your little struggles, your little hurdles are a phenomenal way to learn and to create a way forward. But too many people are seeing those struggles and micro failures and failures as a setback, and that's when they give up. That's when you give up. No, we need to change that mindset and say, yes, there's going to be struggles. Yes, there's going to be hurdles. Yes, there's going to be little failures. How can you learn from them? Don't allow them to be a setback, because they are not a setback. And now, as you sit in there filled with self-doubt and you start thinking about all the reasons why you could potentially fail, and you start being scared of this failure, all of a sudden, what's happening? You are procrastinating. That's what you are doing. You are procrastinating and you are not committing. Okay, that is how you are also standing in your own way of moving forward, because you've created this entire thing in your mind of, I can't do this. This is the reason why I'm too scared to do this. And all of a sudden, it's 1 week, it's 1 month, it's 1 year, and you still not have committed to starting. And then you're like, oh, but this is taking so long, but you haven't even started yet. Okay, so again, a lot of it is stemming from that self-doubt. You're not believing in yourself. Then there's all those little fears that are floating around, and you've then convinced yourself that, oh, I'm not going to do this because I'm too scared to do this. Then you just don't commit. And the more you don't commit to working on it, the more you are not starting. I break this episode, not for an ad break, but for a break to remind you that in the beginning of this episode, I did put in a disclaimer to say that this is quite the tough love episode. But again, like I said, oftentimes you need to hear this. You need to hear this so that you can stop standing in your own way of moving forward. Anyway, after that little bit of a break, the next thing I want you to focus on, or the one thing that you can also start focusing on to move out of your own way and to start succeeding every single day, even in all the small things that you do, is work on that mindset and attitude. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of people have more of a fixed mindset. Whereas if you want to start achieving your goals and you want to start being successful in what you do, you have to start working on having more of a growth mindset, okay? And what I mean by that is when you are faced with an obstacle, instead of saying, I can't do this, ask yourself, how can I do this? You have to believe in your ability to grow. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to make changes. You have to want to grow, okay? And the reason I say that is because so many people get caught up in creating labels for themselves and saying, I can't do this because X, Y, and Z. But have you even tried yet? Have you even tried to tweak the plan to help you move forward? Or did you just stop at, I can't? Now, I know that sounds harsh, but oftentimes it does happen, okay? So if you catch yourself saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, ask yourself, have you tried a different way around the roadblock, or did you just give up at the roadblock? Your ability or your want to learn and grow and change is going to make a massive difference. I know this is so random, but like my mom always used to say to me, now my mom she's actually a qualified university lecturer. But instead of pursuing being a lecturer, her and my dad decided to open their own business, and she was working within their own business. But we were fortunate as kids to have my mom, I want to say, as a backup teacher. Now, every time I went home after school, I will put in a big disclaimer here that I was not great at school and I struggled with learning, and I just didn't have the attention to sit still in class, and I had no interest of being there, okay? But every time I went home, I knew that my second school would start right now. And my mom always took the time to go through all the subjects with me and try and make sure that I understood all the lessons and everything else they taught you at school. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is oftentimes, especially when it came to mathematics and biology, I would sit in front of my mom and I would say to her, but I can't do this. And she would always say to me, yes, you can. Mandy, you can absolutely do it. And I would carry on. I was a persistent mofo. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And she eventually would say to me, she's like, Mandy, you can come to me with problems. That's 100% fine. But I want you to come to me with 1 or 2 solutions as well as to how you can potentially do that. Don't keep telling me you can't do something, because you're going to believe that you can't do it. And guess what? I passed maths and biology in matric, and I'm super proud of that. She says as she's laughing. And the point I was trying to make with that little example that I gave you of my personal life and my struggle with learning is you have to be willing to look for solutions for your can'ts. You can't just stop at can't. I mean, you can if you don't want to be successful in what you are doing. And the last thing that I want to chat about here is you can't just think about taking action, right? That sort of takes me back to that lack of commitment or the procrastination, is you actually have to take action. I've seen so many people spend weeks and months and years on figuring out the perfect plan, but whilst they're figuring out that perfect plan, for the lack of better words, no action is being taken. And again, that no action could stem from everything that I have just discussed. Maybe there's underlying fear, maybe there's self-doubt, and maybe that's why you procrastinating when it comes to taking action. But again, for you to be successful, you have to start taking action. Don't wait for the best time of the year to take action. Don't wait for a time of the year when you've got nothing else going on. Start taking action today. And again, it's about breaking it down into smaller sections that you can manage without being overwhelmed. You don't need to tackle everything at once. And oftentimes it's that thought of you having to tackle everything at once that leads to no action taking place. So again, for you to get out of your own way, for you to stop you from standing in the way of your success, you have to start taking action. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. But before I do that, I promise you this episode was meant with all the love possible. This episode was not meant to make anyone feel bad. This episode was purely created to help you get out of your own way, because oftentimes I know that it is us as individuals standing in our own way from succeeding, because I know that every single one of you are super capable of starting on your health and fat loss expedition and proceeding and progressing and succeeding in everything that you do on this expedition. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who felt a little tough lovey, Mandy.